We're ready to start.
Thank you very much. The Tuesday, July 11th, 2023 meeting of the Sugarland Development Corporation is called to order. Do we have anyone who has signed up or who would like to address the committee?
No, sir, no one has signed up and there's no one's in the audience.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion approved.
No.
Second.
Move on. This is Carol.
Somebody get that?
I say it was Suzanne.
Suzanne, and seconded by
Me.
Oh, no.
no
Raleigh.
Wayne.
She didn't say
He did the
second.
second. No shot did it.
It's
She
not,
didn't say
shot.
second.
it's not all about you.
It is today.
Yeah.
Okay. Item number 4, election of officers, consideration of and action on election of a board president and vice president.
Can we vote? We need to vote.
Oh, yeah,
did the
we need to
first
vote
and
on the
second.
minutes. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you very much. Number 4, election of officers. Consideration of and action on election of a board president and vice president, Elizabeth Huff, Director of Economic Development.
So every year we come back to you guys to come and vote for a president and vice president. And so 1 year's now, and so as elected, the president will preside at all.
Sorry, the president will preside at all board meetings and perform any other duties required by the bylaws. And the president may appoint directors and other persons to serve on standing or ad hoc committees to make recommendations to the board. The vice president performs the duties of the president if the president is absent or unable to act in any other duties as assigned. Last year, our board selected Stuart Jacobson to be the president and Mr. Nishad Kamali to be our vice president. So with that, I'll take any recommendations.
I'll do it again. I'll nominate myself. Nobody else wants to jump up.
Okay, I nominate Stuart Jacobson to serve as president. Second.
Let's vote.
Do we
Okay.
vote separately or do we vote all together?
Meredith,
If you're happy with both. If you're happy with both nominations, you can make one vote for both.
Nishad, do you want to serve again?
Sure.
A second.
Okay, we need to vote on me, Stuart Jacobson, as president, Nishad Kamali as vice president. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, thank you.
We're so easy.
Number 5, orientation. Review of and discussion on purpose, rules, responsibilities, and function of the Sugarland Development Corporation. Chandler Mulpus with an expedited orientation, seeing as how we've all been on the board for at least 1 year.
Sure. Hi, I'm Chandler Walpus. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator for the Sugarland Office of Economic Development. Printed out a 1-page orientation sheet for you that has a lot of this information that we're covering today. So in this presentation, I'll give kind of just an overview of what the SLDC is, its role, its purpose, and why it's important, along with some things like examples of SLDC projects and some of the procedural type things. So the Sugarland Development Corporation's main role is to promote the retention and expansion and development of Sugarland's targeted primary industries that create and retain primary jobs. Some of our targeted industries right now are things like advanced manufacturing, life sciences, business and professional services, and IT. So let me kind of emphasize the importance of these primary jobs. So with primary jobs are a driver of the Sugarland economy. And they do this by, when you bring in primary jobs, this creates a new demand for retail services, which then brings in more sales taxes and brings it, creates a higher percentage for the commercial retail property tax values. And this allows us to maintain lower property values for our citizens, while still maintaining, good public services. And then it's kind of like a cycle, as you see these good public services and nice community bring in more primary employers.
May I interrupt?
Sure.
May I interrupt?
You said lower property values?
Oh, property taxes. my
Oh,
bad.
okay.
Misspoke.
I was like,
So
the opposite.
they lower they keep a lower property.
the opposite's about to happen, yeah.
Yes. And so, yeah, so essentially as SLDC plays a major role in this, they help, generate millions of dollars in the process for the city. As of right now, SLDC since its founding in 1993 has, created $128 million brought $128 million into the city. Like I said, it was founded in 1993. Its funding source comes from a 1/4 cent sales tax on every dollar spent. Let's see. So this sales tax collected by the SLDC can be used for projects related to the creation and retention of primary jobs. Essentially, a primary job is one at a company that exports the majority of its products and services to markets outside of the local region, bringing in new dollars into the economy. And according to the Development Corporation Act, Type A tax revenue can be used to fund projects, which includes land, building, equipment, facility expenditures for things like manufacturing, industrial facilities, distribution centers, research and development facilities, and regional and corporate headquarters, which including many more is listed in the slide and on your sheet. Other authorized categories include things like job training classes and career centers, business airports, things like that. So type A corporations may also issue bonds, notes, and other contractual obligations to fund its projects. And the sales tax received by the corporation may be used to pay the principal and interest on these bonds and other costs related to those bonds. Additionally, type A corporations are allowed to advertise or publicize the city for the purpose of developing new and expanded business enterprises, but this is at a 10% promotional limitation. So when you think of this, think like the Sugar Land Economic Development's marketing division's budget and Visit Sugar Land. Type A funds may also be used for type B projects if authorized by the voters. An example of this would be the SLDC is utilized to fund the debt for the Smart Financial Center. So now we can talk about some SLDC projects. There have been many high-profile projects made possible through SLDC, including the Central Prison Unit land acquisition, Smart Financial Center, as previously stated, Sugar Land Regional Airport expansion, and also the direct incentive program has also incentivized millions of dollars of capital investment for the city from companies including ChampionX, Texas Instrument, Accretive Packaging, and many more. I want to emphasize too that SLDC funds are protected in direct incentive agreements with these companies. For example, First Data's Telecheck division, a company that used to be in Sugar Land. When they came to Sugar Land, they were going to bring 600 high-paying jobs and $10 million of capital investment. However, as the company's business suffered, as checks became less and less important, and the company consolidated their offices and moved from Sugar Land in 2017. But the SLDC was able to recoup all of its direct incentive back, including interest as stipulated by the performance agreement, which is part of every direct incentive. Okay, so the board oversees funding for projects identified as necessary to accomplish the goals of the economic development plan in accordance with direction of the city council. As such, the board is required to follow all state laws governing the allowable uses of these funds. And accordingly, an annual budget is prepared and it is reviewed by the board prior to adoption by both the board and city council. And Justin will be giving us a budget workshop today. So bylaws, as you all know, the board is subject to rules of quorum, open meetings, conflicts of interest, etc. The board elects a president and vice president for each serving 1 year, as we did today as well. The deputy city manager serves as the general manager for the board and is responsible for day-to-day operations. The deputy city manager right now is Jennifer May. The city provides the facilities, administrative, financial, and legal support and services for the board, and the SLDC compensates the city for this support through the budget process. Additionally, type A corporations are required to have bylaws to be able to adopt funding resolutions per state statute. Finally, the board meets on the 4 p.m. on the first Tuesday of each month. And I've listed a few important dates. As you can see, in July, we'll do election of officers, budget workshop, and quarterly report. And next month, we'll have budget approval. And then throughout the months, we'll have things like quarterly reports and annual reports. Awesome. So thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Questions, anyone?
I have a comment. Can you go back 2 slides?
Yeah.
That's a good looking group of people. In the comment.
We were sweating on that day.
It was hot.
It was hot that day.
That turned out good.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Thanks, Chandler. So you're gonna stay with us, right? Item number 6, quarterly report. Review of and discussion on fiscal year 2023 third quarter report. Chandler.
Hey, I'll talk again. So as we begin our life sciences strategy, the Sugar Land Office of Economic Development sent me to the 2023 International Bio Convention in Boston from June 5th through 8th. At the convention, I was able to engage with regional partners and stakeholders such as the Greater Houston Partnership, Pearland, the Woodlands, Bio Houston, to promote the growing life sciences sector in the Greater Houston area as well as Sugar Land. At the convention, a few facts: there were more than 20,000 attendees. There was 4,000, different life sciences and pharmaceutical companies there, and 1,800 exhibits. It was pretty interesting, and we got to meet a lot of very important people, but also open some eyes about Houston's place in the life sciences industry. So then we also had staff travel to strong towns in Charlotte from May 30th to June 3rd. There were 1,600 attendees there from across the US and Canada. And this conference really promoted the importance of community development, and staff was able to participate in workshops, immersion tours in the local community, as well as hearing from thought-provoking speakers and learn some new strategies for the field in fields like urban planning, architecture, mobility, and more. So next we will have the Track 5 Economic and Urban Design Study. So the city of Sugar Land entered into an agreement with Stantec for an economic and urban design study for the 83 acres within Track 5. Track 5 is known as the area around Smart Financial Center, south of Highway 59, northbound feeder, and east of University Boulevard. Since there were recent ownership changes that have occurred in Track 5, staff thought it would be necessary to work with a third-party consultant to identify a new vision for the site that was based on market feasibility. This study will take roughly 10 to 12 weeks to complete, and will include collaboration with both key stakeholders within the community as well as residents focus groups. The study is really a tool for us to gain a better understanding of what the market is deeming feasible for the site, and identify where potential gaps in funding may occur when where the public sector may be required. And to stress, the findings from this analysis should be used as a guide, but not as policy.
I have a question.
Sure.
How much are we paying for the study?
What's the search code?
It's about 110,000, might be 111, but that includes some contingency. So we might not be using all of that, because we just may have had to include some money if they had to have travel costs and those types of things.
Okay, thank you.
And that's being paid for through Tourist 4.
Okay.
And so we'll move on to Great Homes update. As y'all know, Great Homes was launched in February of 2023 and includes an exterior home improvement incentive program as well as a home design program. So to date, there have been 72 design vouchers that were distributed. There's been 151 exterior home projects that are ongoing or have been paid out. Roughly $2.5 million in total home improvement project costs have either been expended or about to be expensed. And $459,632 have been were committed and or paid out as incentives by the city. After speaking with John, we're running out of the budgets because the program has been very successful. But yeah, been great for the city. Finally, so I'm moving on to some of our marketing successes recently. DCI has delivered a success story about Reeves, detailing how the Dallas-based real estate company is continuing to find success in Sugar Land, whether that be in Times Square or other places. The story highlights Reeves' regional successes and milestones at Sugar Land Times Square. DCI also delivered 2 other Sugar Land success stories about SLB and Yokogawa, with each being SEO optimized for keywords such as Houston workforce, Texas economic development incentives, and other search terms. We've also, the Sugar Land Office Economic Development and Visit Sugar Land also have partnered with the Space Cowboys and Public Works, as well as other partners such as Sugar Land Regional Airport, in creating co-branded vehicles to generate more brand awareness for our tourism brand and to continue raising water conservation awareness within our community. And so as part of this, 8 vehicles were wrapped, including the Public Works building as well. And additionally, Visit Sugar Land also partnered with Smart Financial Center in displaying signage throughout the venue promoting Sugar Land's top hotels, attractions, and more. And on those signs, if you scan the QR code, it'll bring you back to the Visit Sugar Land website. So it's building traffic through that as well. Additionally, the marketing team implemented a sitemap audit strategy under DCI's recommendations. So the goal of that project was essentially to make the website more efficient for CEOs, businesses, and site selectors to navigate and use. We were successfully able to bring, it was at 45 plus pages, and we were able to bring that down to 34 pages, consolidate some of that information and make it more user friendly. Moving on, so in April 23rd, the Crown Festival Park hosted the Houston Latin Fest. Even though there was inclement weather for the event, it was still able to bring 4,000 attendees celebrating Latin culture through music, art, cuisine, and it was the first time we've ever hosted this event, but it was a success, even though the weather wasn't our friend that day. Finally, there was big news about an upcoming event in Sugar Land as well. During the first week of June, news broke that the Crown Festival Park in Sugar Land will be hosting the first in Texas festival celebrating Black expression and culture through food, drink, and entertainment. The festival is known as Honeyland and will be in Sugar Land on November 11th and 12th. The project is a partnership between Sports and Fashion Events IMG and Live Nation Urban, and this festival has even had coverage in the Houston Chronicle and things like that. And then finally, I'll give a little bit of a market update. As I gave in the last quarterly report, essentially our office occupancy has stayed pretty steady at 83% compared to 82.9 in Q2. Translating that to vacancy, that we have a 17% office vacancy rate. Industrial flex is still going very strong. In Q3, it was 97.9% occupancy, a slight tick up from 97.6% in Q2. And then our retail occupancy stayed steady as well, with 95.7% occupancy in Q3 compared to 95.6% in Q2. And our hotel occupancy saw a slight uptick from 61.2% in Q2 to 63.1% in Q3. And to give a little more context on this too, I just thought it would be useful to update. Right now, price per square foot for industrial space in Sugar Land is roughly $9.26 per square foot, while office is $29.29 or 20 cents. And retail is at $27.83. I'll take any questions. if you have any.
No question. I find that retail occupancy actually good, but do we identify where we're having a deficit in retail?
Yeah, so John, if you want, John has been working on a project to kind of look at certain commercial centers. Question one more time, I didn't get that.
Where is the deficit in retail occupancy?
Oh.
You don't have to choose off of this.
Overall, our retail is doing pretty great. Right now, to this day, our retail vacancies are hovering at about 4%. Compared to other cities, that's really, really good. Our largest total available spaces within the city limits, 24-hour fitness. Big Space takes a big part of that 4%. The former Gander Mountain and South Sugar Land. And the rest are mainly really small spaces and like cold spots in shopping centers, but overall, we're doing pretty healthy with retail. So
That's interesting.
Just to add a little bit of context too, I mean, I've been here almost 5 years, and from my recollection of when we started, tracking the vacancy, I think when I first started, it was around like 7, maybe 8, and it has continued to decline. Even during COVID, it was around 6%. So now that we're down to like 4 or 5%, it's just continuing to go down. So that occupancy is continuing to rise.
Good.
Just for that historical kind of perspective.
And my question is basically more towards, is it redeveloping kind of stuff, or is it the big box, which you just mentioned? So I'm just kind of curious as to what we were looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is great news, by the way. Everything that I've seen, I certainly like that $459,000 have gone back to the people on improving their homes. I think that's fabulous. I think that was over 3,000 average is that's pretty cool.
No, it is.
What I would love to see here, and I'm assuming you have the data you could supply us, are those stats you just provided regarding commercial occupancy and things like that, just so we can have them for conversation.
It is all, I didn't.
On
The
bottom.
bottom part,
All the way on the bottom.
yeah, it's kind of.
Oh, okay, at the very bottom, I got you. Remember, I'm blind too. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you very much. That's what I need.
Jennifer, did you have
No, I'm fine.
anybody else? Chandler, thank you very much. Appreciate the 2 presentations. Item number 7, workshop. Review of and discussion on the proposed budget for Sugar Land Development Corporation for fiscal year 2024. Justin Meharado, Interim Director of Budget and Strategy. Justin.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be back in front of y'all and talking numbers again. So on this afternoon's agenda, we're going to be talking about your FY23 budget and what some of the year-end projections look like. Then we're going to get into your FY24 proposed budget. And lastly, we'll finish up looking at some of the 5-year forecast assumptions, just to kind of give us an outlook of what the future looks like. So firstly, obviously, as the primary funding source of the SLDC Corporation, staff likes to take a very close look at what the performance of sales taxes is. What we have here, I got my little laser pointer today, our blue line, it'll come on, not. Our blue line here represents the monthly budget estimates for the sales tax collection throughout the current fiscal year. Our green line above shows our actuals year to date, and the bar chart in the background shows what percentage was the actuals over the budget estimate for the month. We've had some months, if you're looking at March here in the center, that hit roughly 17% over budget. However, our most recent month in June, it did come in right around 2% over budget, which is still great as long as we're posting at or above budget, we're in good shape. But it is a good reminder of why we implement the financial management policy statement that the city does have in place for estimating recurring sales tax revenues. So looking at FY23 budget revenues and their projections, we're looking at sales tax revenues of 7.8 million, roughly 600,000 above the original budget estimate. Interest income of 400,000, right around 380,000 above budget. Just for a note here, the budget for FY23, that 20,000 was a very conservative estimate at the time. Not only that, but also since we last met last year, portfolio yields have essentially doubled from right around 2% to 4.25% currently. Our miscellaneous revenues here of 30,000, that's going to be participation rent from the ticket sales over at Smart Financial Center. I believe this is going to be probably the first payment that we've seen in the post-COVID world. TERS assignments estimated at 2 million are projected to remain that way. And then lastly, our TERS 3 reimbursement, that's part of an agreement that was done with the Imperial Redevelopment District that stated when the certified assessed property value of the district reached 400 million, that the city and its corporations would be reimbursed for its contributions over by the ballpark.
I have a question, please. On the miscellaneous from Smart, is that all Smart Financial, or is there something else in that number?
That is all Smart Financial.
So are they quarterly, biannual? Is that all we're expecting for the entire year based on sales for up to this point?
So the background on that is it's an annual payment. And the agreement is that for every ticket that's sold over 250,000 tickets, we get $1. And then every ticket that's sold over 350,000 tickets, we get $2. That amount is split 50-50 between the SLDC and then our general CIP fund for capital improvements.
So it's annual income.
So it's an
Based
annual,
on-
yes, ma'am. They provide us each year with a report based on the prior calendar year and its calculation. And that's how we calculate.
Okay, thank you.
So in aggregate, we're looking at roughly $1 million over the originally anticipated budget. So looking at expenses for FY23, we currently do not anticipate any adjustments to the current budget other than the reduction to the remaining 2 million reserved for opportunities. Staff believes that doing this not only shifts that to future capacity of the fund, but also will better and more accurately display what the anticipated ending financial position for this year of the fund will be. Economic development programs, 750,000, incentives of 2.7 million. And then debt service of 3.95 million. That's going to be based on the current 3 outstanding debt issues for the corporation. Transfer of capital projects of 250,000. That's going to be related to the economic development suite relocation and some of the renovations there. And then lastly, our transfers out to other funds of 880 includes salary reimbursements for ED staff that are budgeted in the city's general fund. And then the annual cost allocation contributions as well. Total expenses for the current fiscal year, just over 8.5 million.
Justin.
Yes, sir.
Could you step back a moment? So in the budget, we had $2 million budgeted to reserve for opportunities, but we shifted that $2 million to future funding capacity. Is that's just in our general fund?
So all of these funds are going to be within the Sugarland SLDC Corporation.
I mean, the general fund of the corporation. Do we have one?
Yes, sir. So it's going to be in combination of increasing that fund balance, and then also you'll see later on in the forecast that we have proposed some increases to the out year reserve for opportunities. So we're shifting that capacity there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on FY23?
That's a good question. Where did the parking revenues from Smart go?
43.
The parking
They're not
revenues
part of
from
that.
Smart, they're not part of the.
No, they're not part of that.
So-
So where do they go?
So the city does have a special events fund that they go to, and the balance
So
accumulates.
they go to there. Okay, that's
So in summary, with the increase in revenues and the proposed reduction in expenses, our net income is anticipated to be 3 million higher than initially budgeted. We have no changes to the sales tax accruals and debt service reserves for the year, so that's going to trickle down to our ending fund balance. And that leaves us over the policy requirement by 15.7 million. And we've got a healthy bond coverage ratio of 2.1 times.
Justin, how high can we go? I mean, how low can we go on the bond coverage?
So policy states that 1.25 times is the minimum requirement.
Okay, thanks.
So moving into FY24, our sales tax revenues. Well, first off, what we like to do is we like to look side by side of where did we forecast the current fiscal year to be, and what our budget estimates are now. When we're looking at sales tax revenues, our current estimate of 7.6 million is roughly $250,000 higher than where we anticipated to be going into FY24. Adjustment here to interest income based on not only increases in fund balances, but the increases in the portfolio yields, truing that up. Based on our preliminary tax rolls with TERS 1, we believe that we'll be able to continue into FY24 with a $2 million assignment from TERS 1. So we have a $400,000 increase there. And then the miscellaneous revenues, we anticipate receiving that participation rent payment again in FY24, just based on the activity that I think they have planned over at Smart Financial. In aggregate here, we're looking at just over, again, $1 million increase from the prior year's forecast for FY24.
Question. Go ahead.
The interest income of 0.40, do you feel that's too aggressive, knowing that that's what we're getting today and not knowing what the next year holds? Is it because you're doing exactly what we got this year?
So we think it's probably that's right in line, maybe a little on the conservative side, actually. That's really going to depend how FY23 really is. We're anticipating with current year sales tax collections and probably some additional savings and expenditures, that fund balance is going to be higher going into FY24, and probably with the current maturities on the actual investments in the portfolio. I think we'll feel comfortable with achieving that in the next fiscal year.
So what assumed interest rate do we use on that?
So it's just going to be a calculation kind of based on some of the year-to-date collections. We do work closely with our finance manager and what those current investments are. And
Okay,
this
thanks.
is the figure we come up with.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. The FY24 expenditures, economic development program budget at 630,000, no change from where we estimated it to be. Economic development incentives, staff's recommending a $500,000 increase to those compared to where we forecasted. This is going to be in an effort to be a little more proactive and aggressive in at least the office retention program that the city has, and part of the vision for redevelopment. Debt service of 3.9 million. That's going to be based again on the current outstanding debt. We're also proposing, like I mentioned previously, with the reduction of current year reserve for opportunities, that we shift that to next year and bump it up to 4 million. Transfers out to CIP, that 2 million, and we're going to get into some detail on CIP here in the next few slides. That's going to be for the design of the Brazos River turnaround alternate roadway. Then lastly, transfers out, that's going to be again your salary reimbursements and overhead cost allocation. All in all, with the proposed increase to incentives, R4O, and the CIP transfers, we're looking at 3.5 million in expenditures.
So Justin, I thought I heard you say that one of the reasons that we shifted the reserve for opportunities for the 23 budget was for a more accurate representation of our financial health, but here we have 4 million that we put back. Why did we do that?
Elizabeth, if you have some comments on what your plans are.
So we're just building capacity next year. Our office market is as dismal as it has been. We have concerns over the long term on infrastructure needs that will be needed for some of those office projects. We'll be bringing some projects here forward that we met with the EDC recently. Also, with our top 2 priorities being Imperial and Lake Point, there's activity there where we could foresee the need for additional funds. We did use the reserve for opportunities this year was 3 million. 1 million of that was moved into the reimbursements for Puma Development for those the first tranche of funds for their work on the chart house and the site. So again, reserve for opportunities is allowing us to have that as a line item in the budget so that it makes it a little bit easier for us to come to y'all and move that money and use it quicker versus having to do a big budget amendment, going to city council, getting approvals. So we did keep the board informed, but it just gives us a little bit more flexibility and ease of using those funds if we need to. Other examples have been the central unit. We had to do a bunch of demolition and environmental work a few years ago. We moved about $900,000 out of it into the CIP. So it just kind of depends on the need, but from our office market standpoint, we see between that, Imperial and Lake Point, we see a lot of opportunity there.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. So with what you just said, thank you. So what you just said, because I kind of had the same question. We have reserved for opportunities at 4 million, that we got incentives at 2. So that's like 6 million in things that we don't know for sure that are opportunities and incentives. They're not quite the same. Can you explain the difference? I mean, incentives and opportunities are so close.
They are. So the incentives right now are, we have always budgeted them at 1.7 million. And those are to cover the cost of existing performance agreements. So like Champion X is one of those companies that we are obligated to pay if they meet all of the requirements in their performance agreement. We have not used that full 1.7 million every year, but we do have some buffer in there as well for opportunities if they come up. So we have something that is hopefully going to be coming to y'all in the next few months that if we needed to pay out immediately, like if they were able to do the work within 30 days, we would be able to use the incentive line item for FY23 to pay out those funds. But if it were to be a bigger project, we would be able to use whatever capacity we have in the incentives and then we would move the reserve opportunity dollars into the incentive bucket.
That's
once they're allocated.
Okay, that was my question. Why couldn't you move the others to make up the difference? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So in summary, with the recommended changes to the FY24 budget, we're looking at not only the way that the fund ended in FY22 compared to what was projected and forecasted when we met last year. We're picking up an additional 5 million in beginning fund balance. Our net income is expected to decrease just below 2.5 million, and that's going to be driven by the increase in the incentives to 500, and then that CIP funding of 2 million. As expected, each year we have an adjustment to accrued sales tax that was 130,000 for this year. That's our ending fund balance compared to where we forecasted is expected to be 2.7 million higher. We're still 12.2 million above the required policy requirement. And then also on the policy requirement, that's calculated as 15% of originally budgeted sales tax revenues. Okay. Some of the long range assumptions here. I hit on at the beginning of the presentation that financial management policy around sales taxes. The policy proposes that when the February CPI is posted, we take a look at that and we pick the lesser of the CPI or 3%. For reference, the February CPI this year was 5.2%, which dictates us using 3 in our long range assumptions for year 2. Years 3 through 5 of the 5-year forecast, when that CPI is positive, it's also 3%. So we're looking at a 3% across the board there. Also in the long range forecast, the TERS 1 assignments, those are going to be ending in FY26 with the end of the TERS 1. Reserve for opportunities in total across the forecast, we set aside 18 million in total. Some bullet points are things I've mentioned here for debt. We do have series 2014 maturing in FY25, and that's going to give us either some additional capacity for other things, or it's going to increase our capacity for future potential debt issuance. And then lastly, the CIP, the Brazos River Turnaround Alternate Roadway. I think I have some additional here. So economic development staff in conjunction with engineering has been working with the Texas Department of Transportation as well as the Houston Galveston Area Council to identify the funding for these needed improvements with that permanent closure of the turnaround. Currently, the total cost for the design in FY24 is estimated at $4 million. The plan is to split that cost 50-50 from both the SLDC and the SL4B corporation. What I've heard is that a minimum of 3.2 million is expected to be reimbursed, but we could see up to 100% reimbursement. The timing on that is estimated roughly around FY27, but we've seen how TxDOT has worked in terms of reimbursements in the past. And then in FY25 is when the project is scheduled to start for construction. Total construction cost there is 25 million and the city's matching at 20%. So that 5 million is also going to be split between the SLDC and the SL4B corporation.
So why is this a corporation 4A, 4B project? Just because we can? I mean, we can link it to tourism at the, but we could have done it from the CIP with the big budget, right?
Was looking at the
Just because we have capacity here, is that why we've assigned it here?
So several reasons, for us on the SLDC and the SL4B, infrastructure is one of a really easy, projects that we can do and we can incentivize or pay for. UH is obviously a very big partner of ours. And so, if you remember in their master plan, they have about 40 acres of land that are adjacent to 59 frontage that they call their industry partnership zone. And so for us, these improvements have several impacts. One, it gives us an alternate entrance and exit to the UH property. It gives us better facilitation and flow of traffic into the Crown Festival Park, Brazos River Park, and UH. And then it'll open up additional connections for us to bring in infrastructure for that industry partnership zone. The university moves at a university state pace, but we are very excited about the opportunities to figure out what their master plan is and how we can work with them. They haven't completely finished their study on how those developments are going to occur. If it'll be the university that pays for the infrastructure, the buildings, and then they lease it to corporations, or if they'll allow corporations to come in and build the buildings themselves. But for us, it facilitates several big wins from an economic development perspective, from the festival site to corporations and bringing businesses to the community.
And we would issue debt.
No, this
For
is
this.
cash.
This is I mean, we get our expanded capacity in 25 when the TERS 1 is dissolved, right? But why would we use cash for something like this? It's a super long-term project, right?
So TxDOT is actually paying for majority of this project.
Fine.
Yes.
Fine.
So
Never
I'm
mind.
gonna use a Daniel term that's OPM. He says he likes to use other people's money.
Yep.
So
never mind.
we are taking a very small, covering a very small piece of this project.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was
20%.
20% of the project is 25 million.
Oh, yeah, it says right there. So.
Yeah, so because I had
No, the
100 million
total
in my
project-
mind.
Total project's 25 million. We're only gonna pay 20% of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that.
Okay, well, I don't know what they're gonna do from the study then. Because my understanding was they were gonna have to expand that bridge. And it was gonna be like $100 million project.
So we are a piece of TxDOT's big project.
Okay,
So our improvements, the roads that go through the university site. And then there's gonna be some improvements underneath 59 and university. I think there's a triple turn lane and a few other things. Our piece of the improvements that we want for the city, this is $25 million. It's a $25 million as a part of a very large project.
okay,
So TxDOT has actually already finished their design work and everything for their stuff. We're a little bit behind the curve, but this is something we had in our budget in FY19 and then, or FY20, and then we never heard back. HGAC kept delaying things. And so we finally got the call and they said, like about 30 days ago, we've made it to the next round and that we should know by December if TxDOT will be awarded this project. And since we're lumped in with them, we have a much higher likelihood of being awarded.
Okay.
funds. So the design is 4 million split between the two corporations. And then the total construction is estimated around 25 million, and 20% of the 25 million will be paid out of the corporations. So that's about 2 million,
Right.
Totals of 2.5.
2.5 per corporation for construction. And we will get 80% to 100% of the design reimbursed, but we aren't banking on that coming in for some time.
Anybody else? Okay,
We can get you information.
So just a quick snapshot of that outstanding debt service. Again, in this fund, there's 3 outstanding debt issues, total principal of 38 million. You can see, starting here in FY26, when that series 2014 pays off, that our annual debt service has a reasonable reduction there and buys us some more capacity. So in summary on the 5-year forecast, some of the key takeaways here. We'll see the negative net income here in FY24 and 25. That's going to be driven by the CIP projects as well as the increase to incentives in 24. All in all, though, we're way above policy, from 10 to 12 million across the forecast, and our bond coverage ratio is growing from 2.8 times to 3.13, based on available and estimated revenues and the outstanding debt service for the future. Questions on the forecast?
Yeah, why such a dramatic drop off from year 24 to 27 on the beginning fund balance? 21.93 to 15.51. I know you have reserved extra for 24.
Well, let's see, we're drawing down by roughly 5, 6 1/4 just in FY24 and 25. So that roughly gets you from 21 to 15. Any other questions on this?
buddy.
All right.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Justin. That was great. Item number 8, Director's Report, Elizabeth Howe, Director of Economic Development.
All right, I'll make this fast. You all got an email a few weeks ago where we did a joint press release and help promote Colliers announcing that they are going to be taking over the leasing for Puma Development and the Char House. And so DCI helped us facilitate the exposure of that and got us some interviews with the HBJ and then some other publications afterwards. And then we also got some media through KHOU when we got ranked as one of the best places to live in the US by livability. And it highlighted Sugarland's business-friendly and well-planned communities as key factors in our high ranking. And then we also had a journalist in town a few days ago and had a great visit from Matador Network, and they went and visited Brazos River Park, Cullinan Park, Space Cowboys game, Department of Wonder, and others. And so we look forward to seeing the results of her visit whenever that's done. So that's all I've got. Thank you for your time.
Anybody? Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned at 4:50 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chandler.
Good meeting.